My name is Wolf, and today we are back with our life beginning and always with Derek's epilogue. You repeated the process of getting ready, though, with the goal of being ready to face the day, then conclude it, and you made sure you were dressed appropriately for what you'd be facing. There were long drives ahead. From there, you went into the living room. The perfectly clean counters were a welcome sight after your efforts the night before. Those last moments of the previous day had gone by so fast, and you fell asleep so immediately. It honestly felt like a 10-minute timeout had been pulled, rather than several hours passing. But Derek's warm greeting was still welcome to your ears.
Morning.
Morning! It's a brand new day, and fresh start, and we're already set to make the most of it. Israel sold, and the park hadn't been lost under the light of a new day. Rather, the Derek from the dark moment seemed a lifetime away from the man in front of you now. Good morning. I'm happy to hear that. It's gonna be good. Definitely. How'd you sleep? It was another good night. I slept soundly.
Awesome.
Awesome. His eyes darted towards the tiny kitchen where plenty of supplies were tucked away. Then his gaze returned to you. For our big day, we've got to have breakfast. Can't be running on empty. Yeah, I'll get something. Derek's meal consisted of scrambled eggs, a side of cinnamon steel cut oats cooked in almond milk. He prepared some eggs with simple accompaniments. Plates, bowls, cups, and utensils were set at the table, and the two of you sat yourselves down in chairs. You noticed Derek focused on a single bowl of his food at a time. He didn't start walking through the oatmeal until the eggs were entirely gone. Between bites, Derek idly chatted about your plans.
So?
You have a swimsuit? I know I'm asking this now. The morning we're going. I should have checked ages ago. I was excited. But we can stop by somewhere to get one if you don't. It's not your job to make sure I already have a swimsuit. If I needed one, I should have said so myself. But I don't. I've already got mine. I usually end up needing it at some point when I'm back home, even if I don't always know exactly why. You grew right next to the ocean, having a swimsuit gear. You grew up right next to the ocean, having swimming gear on hand is second nature. You probably bring it even if you're going to the top of a mountain. He snickered. Good point. Let's pack it all up. The students' breakfast is over. We can hit the road right away.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, and they have changing rooms there. You won't have to drive all the way there in swimsuits. Just remember to bring it along. His planning instincts came back in full force as he rattled off a list of potential items to pack, counting them off on his fingers. Water, a swimsuit, a towel, a change of clothes, sunscreen, cover-ups, maybe. You joined in on the discussion. You brought up proper shoes and making your phones are as close to fully charged as possible. You nodded along. Everything should be covered with your two forward-thinking brains working together. Derek grew more and more eager as he spoke. He stopped briefly to polish off his oatmeal and down a bowl of sports drink. You followed his lead, and made a quick work of your breakfast. Both of you cleared off your own dishes. From there, you went straight back to your room to gather the new supplies you needed. You had a carry-on size bag as far as your luggage that you could use for the day trip. It had been emptied out already for your stay at Derek's. First thing you packed was your swimsuit. It was. We've always gone with swim trunks. And, considering our chest is literally just naturally flat, swim trunks is basically all we needed. You remembered your towel, and you bore a shawl, and you got a hat, and made sure to bring sunglasses, and you had goggles you could use. I'm gonna casually skip over the change of clothes. You grabbed your water ball as the last piece. You were going to look fantastic. Derek would be set to impress. Derek was set to be impressed. He wasn't the only one planning ahead. That was crucial consideration when you chose the swimsuit. A few more bits and bobs were slipped into the pack before you slipped it up. You mentally ran over the contents, going through an imaginary checklist for all the important supplies. When you felt certain you had everything you needed, you slung the bag over your shoulder, then regrouped with Derek in the living room. His gym bag was under his right arm. Derek attempted to give you a thumbs up without letting it slip out. This is gonna be good! Yeah! Derek crushed the bag in his hands, entirely in order to position it protectively in front of his chest. He kept his tone relaxed.
Well.
Hey, are we going on a date now? Or does that not start until we made it to the park? You pick. Then, let's say it's already happening. I can't take the suspense. He was so cute. Alright, we're on a date. Awesome! Feels good. You left the apartment behind, knowing you wouldn't be seeing it again until the day had ended. Once you, Derek, and your bags were packed into the car, you pulled out of the lot. Derek's and your first date had not only begun, but it was on the move. There was a lengthy trip ahead of you, but Derek had it all under control. He used the opportunity to check in with family and friends. With how busy each day in Prison Vista City had been, it was only moments like this when you had the chance to keep up with texts. Lee was on a trip herself, gallivanting around Europe. She'd sent you a whole series of photos she had taken, from food she'd eaten to fashion she'd worn. It all looked amazing. Liz showed you a message saying she was so swamped. She apologized, but had no time to chat with her sibling. Young Liz, it was okay, comforted you, and so did seeing how her queenly attitude still hadn't changed. But it was a bit sad, for the both of you had such separate lives now that you were grown. But once you put your phone down on your lap, Derek was there to avoid any dead air. He chatted boyishly about the water park, recounting stories of his past excursions there with his family over the years. One time they almost got kicked out because Nicholas jumped onto Derek's back to go down a single-person slide with him instead of waiting to have his own turn. Luckily, no one was hurt, and they got on the hook in the end. It was hard for anyone to stay mad at it like that. Then, as if his words materialized into a mythic lost city into existence, the massive sights Derek had been describing began to rise up against the skyline. Sparkle in his eyes as Derek swallowed them only added to the legendary effect of what you'd beholding. You'd arrived. Before you could enter through the hollowed gates, you had to pay a terrible price, $15 for a one-day parking pass, and then $45 each for tickets. It was worth the cost according to Derek, and the exchange was made. The afternoon was young, and you actually made it inside the water park. It was a dazzling playground with rides curving and looping through the air, taller than the palm trees lazily fluttering in the breeze. Their leaves greeted every guest with a friendly flicker of the frond. And the entire place was rimmed by an expensive artificial wave pool that broke off into small streams squeezing through the walkways. Alright. He jogged ahead with all the enthusiasm of a first-time goer, before spinning around to face the person who had actually never been there before. Let's get on our swimsuits. Then we can get started. The individual changing rooms and showers are over there. Derek pointed a finger off to the left to direct your gaze. Over the heads of strangers rubbernecking, you could make out some simple beige buildings. It was the only part of the place that wasn't immediately eye-catching. Plus, there are lockers you can use to keep your stuff safe. Want to meet up back here when we're done? Sounds like a plan. See you in a minute. The huddle of two broke, and you got in line for the bathrooms. Eventually, you each got your own stalls. In the privacy of the small space, You performed the grand quick change act, the known by yourself. You're ping-ponging enough with the rules. The Trunks couldn't get on. The Trunks couldn't get on you fast enough. Jack was waiting. Maybe not specifically for the swimsuit, but he would be waiting for you, and you were waiting to show him. So, after throwing one set of clothes off and another on, he paused to make sure nothing was left behind. Though your belongings bundled in your arms, you found board with the lock open, left the store in record time. You changed again to claim a locker during your visit. It was a real amusement park experience. With a shrug, you packed your clothes and phone inside for safekeeping. Then you made your way back to the entrance. Through the crowds of other guests, you continued forward until you spotted Derek, standing now with his bare feet at the edge of the pool. Water bubbled over his toes and the waves came in. He was born only a fitting black swimsuit, streaking down each side with green accents that made his eyes pop even more than usual. And for those who want to see it without the text, there you go.
What's up?
Sup, good looking. Those verdant eyes were focused right on your purple ones, at least when he first noticed you. After that, there was the moment when his gaze began to wander down your full form. His staring didn't linger long enough to be impolite. It was as if he'd perfectly calculated the ideal number of seconds for personal joys and upholding societal values.
So...
Since we're definitely on a date at this point in the process, I thought it was a fair game to mention how you look, and that I'm a fan of it. Success. You're welcome. I never disappoint my fans. The line was spoken as you shifted into a coy pose. Man, you give too much. I'm not worthy. Chuckling bashfully, Derek ruffled his hair. You couldn't tell if he was musing it up unconsciously or attempting to fix the direction of the spikiness after pulling his hoodie over his head. Could be both. Either way, you're very much aware of Derek being right there next to you. You know, you're really ripped. And with that, you officially made Derek's day. He beamed wider than the championship winner's victory photo.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on.
Where should we get started? I want to do anything and everything. There's no way to lose. You recollected the main attractions Derek had filled you in on during the ride. With a surety of authority on the topic, even though you'd never stepped foot in here before, you told Derek where you hoped to start. We could explore the water playground. Yeah, we could. It's over this way. The slides were in front and center of the park. Derek brought you around behind them. That was the water playground. A rubber-coated floor with a few inches of water over the entire space really differentiated this area from the rest of the park. At the heart of it was an impressive jungle gym with multiple layers, bridges leading. Oh wait, there's levels. At the heart of it was an impressive jungle gym with multiple levels, bridges leading to different structures, and water jets shooting out everywhere. But the star feature was the truck-sized bucket threatening to spill its contents over at any moment. It was a Saturday morning cartoon playhouse come to life. That section was mostly for young guests, based on the signage, and the fact that it was full of kids. But there was big enough grown-ups too, and you didn't want to miss out on anything. Besides, Derek would have told you if it was a bad idea. Or maybe his childlike impulse streak was showing its colors. But he simply didn't care about technicalities either. It was hard to say, but at least he was having a good time. The two of you clambered up the steps and explored the catwalks. Derek ducked and weaved to avoid the spray of nearby fountains, before intentionally sticking his face into the one closest to the jungle gym. He shook his head to get the water off, hitting him with the crossfire.
Sorry.
Oops, sorry. The voice actor's sorry sounds so sarcastic. I love it. You sputtered a laugh, stunned in place by the tiny splash. Stunned in place by the surprise splash. Derek leapt over the tiny flight of stairs off the jungle gym, put more distance between you. But there was no time to form a proper reaction to any of that, for there was a new source of excitement. The bag is about to drop. Shouting, Derek opened his arms wide and beckoned towards you. You sprinted past him to get there first. The moment your foot only hit 1-3 steps before you landed on the ground. For a moment and then stopped. You continued speeding away from Derek towards the splash zone. You could hear his splattering footsteps coming up on your heels. The massive tank gradually tipped until a waterfall spilled, completely submerging you in its blood for a single moment. When it was all over. The only sign it happened was a very small wave that rippled from the drop point and the rest of the playground. That was wild! I was laughing at the last option, by the way. The high on the on-land plunge lingered, and you cheered. Yeah! After that, you were ready to go to another area. I want to swim in the wave pool. What a coincidence. So do I. That particular attraction was the majority of the park. It wrapped its way around the walkways and up into every corner. You didn't need Derek to point the way you wanted to go, as you were essentially there. Derek knew that too. There was no need to pick a different spot of the expansive pool. You just jumped in. You joined him in the water. It was an interesting experience, the wave pool. The pool had gradually sloshing shape with a shore on one side, waves pushed from one end to the other on a timer. They were yelling when you got in. You bobbed up and down with the replicated motion of the ocean. Usually you had to choose between man-made swimming experiences of still water in a perfectly shaped hole, or the vast wild unpredictability of the sea. You thought it was fine. Nice to try, but not exactly life-changing. You'd just be happy in a pool or at the beach. You splashed Derek while his guard was down. The dormant deviousness bubbled up inside of you. You cupped your hand firm with chlorinated water. You waited until Derek's head was fully turned towards you. Then you launched the ammunition straight ahead. Ah! Nailed him. I should have seen that coming. He used a hand to wipe away both of the clinging drops of water and look of amusement, revealing his game face underneath. It's on, Gally! He screeched as Derek struck at the surface no sooner than he had officially declared the war. The crescenting of the water added a whole nother dimension to your classic splash fights with Derek. You had moved with the flow, using it to your advantage back when you had the high ground. Derek fought against you, the difference in the battlefield. He wasn't used to it, but he had more experience with this kind of scuffles. Mika and Huari were always up for rough housing. Elizabeth, not so much. The Clash of Titans was to be seen, but for some reason other guests elected to move further away, instead of staying to witness it. A truce was called when you were both breathless and being eyebaled by one of the lifeguards. Then you got out of the pool. Let's go down some slides! Hell yeah! You shot a hand towards the twisting yellow one, making it very clear which ride you were intending to go for. Derek had a thumbs up for that. Good choice. Is it though? It's a really good choice. I don't like waterparks. I've tried them. I like them. The two of you raced across the park and came to an abrupt stop with a long clustered group of people who all have the same idea as you. Amusement park lines of peak of summer visiting hours were no joke. You inched forward every minute or so, being echoed from the top of the stairs as guest after guest hurled down the water slide. Distant surf rock played over speakers as you waited for your turn. You didn't even notice it was there until you'd gone higher up the steps. Derek entertained himself and you by doing a little dance and playing a ukulele in time with the tune. He snickered all the way to the launch platform. It was a closed top instead of a half pipe. There was a perfectly round opening for the slide that continued into the deep, dark descent. A low roar came from the swelling waters flooding through the massive tube. It was a straw of giant trying to suck you inside. Your heart pounded. After you. Here I go! The ride technician led you to the lip of the slide, listed off the safety measures that they'd certainly recited a million times before. They gave you the okay to push off. There's no need telling you twice. You scooted your butt right into the surge and you were off. You zipped down and around as if you were a gumball in one of those fancy machines that made the tree go through a loop before arriving at the child's hand. But the warm embrace that you landed in was an explosion of the heated pool water. A massive smile stayed on your face as you surfaced. There's no time to get stuck in a daze. A reverberated "Woo!" chased after you, right through the narrow path until once again the water was launched into the air by a dramatic arrival. You and Derek waded through the waist-deep water, catching your breath that had been taken away by the rush. It was wild, but only the beginning. You were starting to hit every one of the half-dozen big slides in the place. With that achieved, you suggested to do something else. How about we take a trip to the lazy river? Definitely. Derek wove his way around the path. He didn't need a map to navigate the area with confidence. Around the bend, and flanked by a row of palm trees, was a sloughing artificial shore that led into the river rather than the wave pool. There was a single employee tasked with passing out donut-shaped floats for the ride. Here we are. He strolled up to the park attendant, the park worker holding up 2 fingers. They got the message and handed Derek 2 tubes. One was for himself, the other was obviously for you. Getting into the float wasn't relaxing or graceful. As tacky as it felt when dry, it was a tricky beast to mount when you hit the water. You barely avoided flipping over the side face first into the river, and bending entirely inward and slipping through the hole in the center. Derek had his own tribulations. He gave you a space to kick off, but waited too long to follow. You were going down the ride without him. He got into the water on his foot, paddled his arms, felled his legs, and pumped his chest forward and back in an amusing attempt to get some forward momentum going. That was not effective, so he went with Plan B. It did not surprise you that he had a Plan B. In a slightly sacrilegious move, he offered the tube to swim through the lazy river. Once he reached you, he dove under the surface and came up through the hull of his float, and made use of his upper body strength to pull him into a sitting position. Finally, you were properly situated. Derek was at your side, and the leisure time could begin in earnest. The sun's heat fell down over the world, so it was hard to The sun's heat fell down over the world, so hard it might have physically been a blanket draped on top of you. But the underside of your body that was dipped into cool water kept your temperature comfortable.
Oh, man.
Man, we did it. We talked about going to another park together ever since we went to the boardwalk years ago. Good job, us. It was worth the wait. Agreed. Yeah, because you don't have 2 other children, plus potentially Elizabeth, going with you.